Before we start this presentation tonight, first of all, I want to thank you for coming. This is more of an informational session than anything else, but I want to make you aware of a few things. A little housekeeping before we get started. First thing, bathrooms are out the door to your left. Number two, this is not in order of importance, but there is, but that one is. There is a yellow sheet in the back where you can sign up to have questions if we have enough time at the end. This is scheduled to end at 7:45. The reason we say that is because the town board has an emergency meeting scheduled for 8 o'clock over at the Lansing Community Center. You're invited to come over there afterwards if you want to listen to that. So 7:45 is our cutoff for tonight, so I'll try not to waste too much time here. And the third thing is that if your question has been answered through the presentation, please be aware of that. Ted Lux is taping this, as others are taping this. We normally put our town board meetings on the website. As you can see, this is confidential, which means Jerry has to, this is Jerry Goodnow over here, this is John Marabella. They're asking the permission of their bosses to release this. In the meantime, Ted will tape it, we'll give it to Patrick in the rec department, and when we get the okay, it'll be on the website. Okay? So that's all right with that. So having said that, to give you some background here, as our relationship continues with the power company, about 2 years ago they had tried to do a solar array. That solar array would have been approximately 18 megawatts, covered about 75 acres of land. That, for whatever reason, did not take off, did not get any traction. Therefore, they've come back with a different proposal. As you can see tonight, this is one way that this power plant will not be a power plant anymore. It will not burn coal. And I'll say it one more time, this power plant will no longer burn coal. I think that's one of the things that everyone wanted, was that not to burn coal. It's not going to burn coal. It's not going to burn coal sooner than later, sooner than at the end of 2020. The other thing is that we're asking, as people mill in here, is that if you want to have conversations, whatever, please feel free to do it out in the hallway, so we don't want to disrupt the other people that are trying to listen here. That's the third thing I wanted to ask. So getting back to this presentation, this is a courtesy that this company has done for us, which I appreciate. There has not been any allocation of power. They're still in that process. Hopefully that'll happen. If it doesn't, this is all moved. I hope it does happen. That's why we're trying to build up as much community support as possible. There have been letters of recommendation to do that. We hope to have a resolution passed by the town board tonight to also do that. The county has passed a letter to go forth on that. So having said that, we hope that as a group we can have one voice through Tompkins County to get this project off the ground and move in a different direction. So there'll be two presentations tonight. There'll be some questions answered. Then from there, if we have time, we'll have more Q&A afterwards. That's why it's important that you put your name down on the yellow sheet. Having said that, I think I've talked long enough to 6 o'clock, 6:02. So on that note, I'll turn it over to Jerry Goodnow, and we can start the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. I'm a little soft-spoken, so if I drown out, raise your hand, I'll pick back up again. I don't, my coaching voice isn't here. Speaking of which, I had the opportunity tonight, I got here a little early. I ate out on the picnic tables, watching baseball warm up. And you know, sometimes they say that sense of smell can trigger some things. How about that sense of hearing, right? Who doesn't enjoy the tink of a baseball off the bat? Man, it just, oh, it's awesome. You know, it brings back memories. I did a lot of coaching. You have the guy with the smooth swing, and then you got the guy that's that bad ball hitter. You know, and you try to straighten that person out. My son graduated with one of those kids. I coached him for 7 years. So I finally gave up on trying to straighten out his swing, just let him go at it. Man, the kid was amazing. And there's somewhat, and I didn't really do this on purpose, but there's somewhat of an analogy here in that we've attempted, I have, for probably 10 to 12 years now, to figure out what to do on this site. You knew the time was coming. And A lot of times we're sitting here going, geez, we got an interconnect, we got a lot of land, we're a generator, let's keep on generating. And we really focused on that. And yet, here we are talking about a project that's about as far from generation as can be. Kind of a bad ball hitter, but we're really excited about this project. We'll get into it. I want to just give a brief more history in case you don't necessarily know John and I and what we've done at this plant. John Marabella has been doing environmental work at this plant since late 80s, early 90s. You moved here in 93? 97. So John's been a resident. When I had the opportunity to work at the plant, I chose to move to Dragon. We kept track of what was going on, and we were here all the time. And I'm actually very pleased that Paul Souther's here tonight. So Paul, the reason we're here tonight is because of Paul. Paul hired us both at the plant. Paul showed great leadership at that plant, and again, appreciate all you've done there. So to just, was I not loud enough? So just again, a little more history, because I think the history is important here. So John and I started with NYSEG. I was mid-80s, John was late 80s. We worked in an engineering group down in Binghamton, worked on all the plants that NYSEG owned, had an opportunity to come up to then Milliken Station in the early 90s when Milliken went through a plethora of work, kind of a retuning of the plant. Mills and burners and an FGE system was put in, a lot of work done. And in 98, the state said that the utilities had to deregulate, that sell off their generation assets. And NYSEG was the first to do that in 99. John and I had an opportunity to transfer with the company, and that was AES. Most of you probably know that. And AES owned these facilities through 2011 and early 2012. A couple other owners since then. The reason I want to bring that up is we were extremely proud to work for NYSEG and AES and even through these other ownership groups. And why is that? They always put safety first, they always put their people first, they always put environmental issues first. It's on everybody's mind, it's always been on everybody's mind through all the ownership groups. And I wanted to make sure you guys understood that. And what made that happen was the people at the plant and the leadership to make sure that we put that as a priority. Like I said, I've been looking to try to repurpose this site for a while. So we got word that a company called Beowulf Energy in the late 15s and early 16s was looking to acquire the assets. So of course, we've been through this before. What's the first thing you do? You get on the site, you start Googling Beowulf, who are these guys, what are they doing? Then they came and met with us in early 16. And I'll never forget this. The guy who came here, and he wanted to try to be here tonight, but he couldn't make it. Michael Henry, he does a lot of their community relations work. Great guy. Took a phone call. The phone call was from the governor's staff. It was the day that the governor was having his State of the State address, 2016. And he wanted to warn Beowulf during the address, he's going to be announcing he's going to be closing coal. He wanted to let these guys know, you probably don't want to be doing this, I'm going to shut them down. And actually, Beowulf said, it's fine. We're not really looking at this as a long-term energy play anyways. We like the asset, we like the site, we want to figure out what we're going to do here. So I was pretty impressed with that. And of course, they stayed and they took control in May of 16. So when we sat down and said, what have you tried to do here? And I'm just going to list off a few of these. And again, I'm hammering on this tonight because I want you to understand that we tried hard to repurpose this facility. There's a milk production plant that actually ended up locating in Cuyahoga County. We tried hard to get them at our site. We looked at biodiesel. We looked at amoebas. We might have done this when Paul was here. We looked at amoebas to pass through a screen that was going to be a slipstream of CO2. They eat the CO2 up. You crush them up. They become fish food. It was a unique process. And we couldn't figure out how to make it work. We looked at wood pellet plants. Of course, everybody knows we looked at converting to gas. And we've looked at solar and pump storage. Now, I want to echo a little bit what Ed said. So, in 2017, NYSERDA came out with their first large-scale renewable solicitation for solar. We put in at this site, and we put in at Somerset. We put in again in 2018. NYPA also put out a solicitation that we submitted bids on. Okay, we haven't been able to win that bid. And the main reason why is that for a large-scale renewable, a large piece of your income is from the energy price that you're currently getting off the market. And in upstate New York, that energy price does not support these projects. We're continuing to put in, we're trying hard, we're going to put in this year. We just got, well, we think we're going to get qualified. We pre-qualified, we had to add one data sheet to that. So we're going to continue to put in solar. I know a question that's been asked is, are these projects coherent? Do they depend on each other? If we win a NYSERDA bid, we're going to bid solar. Okay? The data center is dependent on the state, on some state support for this. We're looking for a NYPA allocation, and we're looking for Empire State Development Fund. Both programs exist within the state. We qualify for all the pieces to qualify for it, and so we're working hard to try to get their attention to throw their support at these two projects. And like Ed said, and we've heard this, when communities show support for these, that helps them make their decision. So, you know, again, I'm very happy with the turnout, and hopefully we can, you know, get some letters written from this community to show that support. Okay, and then just the last piece on this data center, then I'll get into the meat of the presentation. So, how many people in here understand, or no, let me ask the question this way first. How many people know what REV is? Not Ithaca REV, but REV out of the PSC. Raise your hand. Okay. How many people understand what REV is? Raise your hand. Okay, that's good. So, REV, the word animate the market, has been used a lot for those folks that raise their hand, yes, right? And what does that mean? What that means is end users and producers both have to understand what the market is doing at that time. If the market is in high demand, where's the price? It's a high price. It's an incentive for people to turn down their air conditioning, do laundry later, that type of thing. This project fits right in with REV. And when we've talked to the ISO and the PSC about this project, the fact that it has a turn down at times of peak demand, and that's what we're targeting, right? One of the things that we're trying to do is say, okay, if a plant's only running 2% of the time to meet peak demand, let's shave the peak, let's not use that expensive generation. And so this particular project can be a great turn down, almost like a reverse battery. And I'm going to hit that again, but I want people to understand that we've received a lot of anticipation from the PSC and the ISO on being able, this could be large, right? You could turn down 30, 40 megawatts within seconds. That's a pretty big deal. Okay, on to the presentation. So when we have talked about this project to the state to garner support, it's the Empire State Data Hub. It concerns both the plants that we own. Somerset plant in Niagara County, on the shores of Lake Ontario, and of course the plant here. I will target the plant here, but we've been presenting this as a whole. And so some of the questions that I've received have said, wait, you've said 650 in capital, you've said 100 in capital, what do you mean? Okay, well I'm going to go through those numbers. And I get the fact that it can be confusing. Let me just take this piece off. Okay, so in Somerset, another great place for this. 1,800 acres. It's on a nice interconnect, 345 kV. That's a pretty large transmission. The Cuba site, 434 acres, you're more familiar with this site, it's on 115, 3 lines leaving. The rest of that information was more for the stakeholders that we were presenting to. You'll notice that we highlighted IBEW. There's a total of 43 folks at the plant, and there's a few here, so I'm going to be careful with this statement. It's not an age discrimination statement, and we are pushing 55 years as the average age, of which the guys here tonight, I'm sure, are younger than that. Correct? Okay. So the next slide was an attempt to show what has happened since Beowulf took over in 16. And this may be hard to read, but I've already highlighted the 2016 one, right? The governor's saying I'm going to close these plants. We targeted trying to go to gas. So we put a poll out, we tried to get as wide an audience as we could, starting to ask questions about gas. So we highlighted that. As we talked about, we've looked at solar projects. Now I want to stop here because another question that has been asked, right, I've seen 15, I've seen 20, Ed said 18 tonight, so I want to make sure you understand. I want to go back to the fact that I'm trying to get solar done regardless of the data center. So we're out there soliciting bids. Sometimes 15 megawatt is what we put in for a solicitation. Sometimes it's as much as 20. There's not going to be a ceiling on this. If I can get some solar built, then we're going to try to do some more. And then we're going to try to do some more. So if you see different numbers, there's not any really playing there. It's just the fact that it may be what we were talking about that day when we talked to a developer. There's room on this site for probably 30 megawatts. Remember that black walnut grove right on Starks Road? That's mature now. It's beautiful walnut grove. I'd hate to cut that down and put solar on, right? But there's some places that we're trying to work around. But there's room for probably 30 megawatts. Okay, May of 2018, so the governor announced I'm closing coal. He needed a way to do it. He decided to use a reg called Part 251 through the DEC. So the DEC promulgated this, thank you, this reg. And there's quite a few people in here who commented. They got over 5,000 comments on this reg. So it took a while for them to get to this later step. But meanwhile, we filed paperwork saying, hey, we're going to convert to natural gas. We're going to use a pipeline. Well, outside public policy and the pushback, at the same time, energy economics have just gone down to the point where I don't even say the market's broken anymore. The energy market is non-existent on the wholesale side. And I'm going a long litany on that, including what the ISO has put out lately to talk about that. But there is no energy market. So the fact that the county and the town did resolutions against gas, and the fact that there's just plain no market. And right now, doing any generation on this site that would be wholesale driven, not a subsidy side like the renewables, just isn't going to work. Okay. June 2018, the final regs were put out. So how they're doing this, as far as they're trying to close, they probably will close coal through the CO2 reg. And they're starting by notching at an emissions level that everybody else can make, but coal can't. And so probably what happens next, this is an opinion, not a fact, is the DEC will come out a little later, notch that down, maybe start to hit some fuel oil and continue to notch down. That's just my crystal ball. But the first time through, they've hit coal. I thought I saw Irene. Is she in here?
In the jury box. Just the jury.
Do you agree with my statement on that? Do you think they're kind of going to ratchet that down? Or?
I hope so.
Okay,
we might be on different pages on that, but I hope so.
Okay, so in 19, and this slide is dated a little bit, but 19, the governor in the state of the state came out with a Green New Deal, which now has been surpassed by the Community Leadership Climate Protection Act, which, does anybody understand that? That's got a lot of stuff in it. But as I've read through that, again, I think this project that we're doing pigeonholes into that nicely. The Act talks about closing fossil fuel, transitioning, looking for projects that are more green. I think this fits in there perfectly. Okay, next, John. So I'm going to hit this quickly, but we just didn't stumble on to data centers. We own another coal plant in Montana. Same issues going on in Montana. Kind of struggling. Less from public policy in Montana, more from just the fact that it's not economic. So our owner happened to be at some event with another guy who does a lot of artificial intelligence work, and they started talking about data centers, and the next thing you know, we've worked out a deal in Montana where we're building a data center on that site. Data center guys chase energy. That's what they're looking for. We know a lot about energy. That's how this marriage happened. They asked, geez, this is working good. Where can we do this again? And we said, well, we own some coal plants in New York. We started working through it. It's going to be a little bit different business model. Another question that was asked that we got, are you planning on powering this data center from the existing coal plant? The answer to that is no. This coal plant will shut down. Data center will be powered off from the grid. Montana, the plant is going to power that data center for a while. Next slide. So, we have 3 more slides on this. This is the combined, what are Somerset and Cayuga doing? It's an ideal campus. When you take a look at these, they have land, they've got great interconnects, they've got access to lake for cooling water, they've got utilities, they've got employees on site that know how to manage the plant piece of this, at least as far as if we're going to use any utilities off of it, not to run the plant, and so it's very attractive. If I missed anything. Skilled workforce, higher education. So combined at full load. So this is going to be a 100 megawatt site at Cayuga, a 500 megawatt site at Somerset, combined 600 megawatt site. $650 million of private investment, around 200 new FTEs. So we're going to talk about the labor force a little bit. This is a very difficult conversation to have. Some of these guys have been at this site longer than I've been here, and I've been here 31 years. They've been doing this work diligently. They've developed a skill set. These data centers require a different skill set. So we're sitting here trying to figure out how can we make this work. We haven't come up with that solution. I'm going to tell you right now, the folks at this plant have been extremely patient. We have run, we have not run. We had a run Monday. We came on Monday. The market wasn't there. The ISO forced us on. So these guys are sitting home on a Sunday, on a beautiful weekend, and they get a call, you got to come and run this plant. And we came in and we ran the plant. We were 15 minutes early coming on. And of course, everybody was diligent in safety and environmental, right? So these guys deserve a ton of credit. So one of the things I'm going to ask for, and I know there's a ton of support for the employees, and I appreciate that, but just remember, behind all the good work that happens at this plant are these people that work very hard. Broad political support. I haven't ever sat down with, and I got permission to talk about it, with Lisa Dix from the Sierra Club, and ever have her excited about a project that we're doing. She's written an op-ed. She's very much promoting this project. It's kind of fascinating. We've got a lot of construction jobs with this, and I realize construction jobs aren't full-time and temporary, but that's what these construction guys do. They go from job site to job site. So we've got in the labor trades very excited about this. We've got the folks that are looking for still an economic engine in their community excited about this. We've got senators, assemblymen, other environmental groups excited about this. The League of Conservation Voters is very excited about this. And we have Irene excited about this. I missed the Jerry Barnes. And I'm going to go into this, but I know when I first introduced this project, especially to the plant manager of this plant, who also couldn't be here today, he's out at another plant, it's called data center. What a data center? What are we doing at a data center? What happens there? Well, I've been now diving into this for almost a year, and it's just amazing what's behind a data center. So I'm on a tangent a little bit and try to answer some more things that came up. So the initial feedback from data centers are, what are you going to do, that Bitcoin stuff and cyber currency stuff? The answer to that is, we don't think so. And it's not that we're not trying to, but the folks that we're working with as tenants on this, they're excited about storage, cloud storage. You know, how many people have pictures on their cell phones? That's all on a data center, right? They're excited about large computational services. So what do I mean by that? There is a client in Europe, and I thought about you again on this, Paul. This is fascinating. And they make turbine blading. All shapes, all sizes, all torque ratios, all kinds of metallurgy. 20 years. And they have documented failures on these. And so what they're doing now is they're building some AI, some artificial intelligence, that's going to tell them, I'm being facetious here, but 2 seconds before the thing fails, based on all the computational data they have. And they're excited about that. Why? Because they're going to eventually save money. And that just takes months worth of data. I was at a TCAD annual meeting about 3 months ago. A professor from Ithaca College spoke. And he goes to Mayan ruins and he maps the Mayan ruins. And the data that he uses is months worth of data. And then the computations take a year. All that's done at data centers. So, as you start to look at commercials that are on TV and other things, the amount of data center usage is increasing. Most of us in here, I'm going to get in trouble for this comment again, but I don't see too many millennials in here. They'll tell you the importance of data centers. They're dying for usage. Okay, I tangented again. So, next slide, please. Okay, I want to keep this up briefly, that this math all works when you start taking these projects and separating them and saying, okay, we're going to do 650 as a whole. At Somerset, it's a larger data center, 500 megawatts. We're going to do about 550 million capital there. The rest of this is Somerset, probably not interested. Let's get to the last slide. Okay, so this is what we're doing at Cuba. 100 megawatt data center. That's the goal. We are starting at 50. We've put in to the ISO, and I'm going to have a conversation on this, so I'm not going into a tangent here. We put into the ISO a 50 megawatt load interconnect. We asked to interconnect 50 megawatts at this site. I'll go into more of that in a second. Eventually, we're going to get to 100. We wanted to start at 50. $100 million capital investment, 30 to 40 FTEs. So somebody asked, where are you getting these numbers from? So here's where we're getting them from. We're doing this in Montana. We see those numbers. This isn't the recipe to make the chocolate cake or the vanilla cake. The kind of the ratio is for every 100 megawatts of energy usage, that's somewhere around 30 employees, it's somewhere around $100 million in capital. So I've just taken those numbers and ratioed them up as we've gone to these larger numbers and a combination. When I've looked, and a lot of this information you really can't get off from going and saying, okay, Google just announced a large project in Minnesota, but they are announcing their job numbers, and we seem to be in line with them. So that's where the data is coming from. 60 megawatts construction, 100 construction jobs, 60 million in construction budget, 20 megawatts of solar, about 110 acres. So I'd like to get 20 megawatts on it. If you see a different number, it's simply that maybe, again, that's the developer we're working with there. I think more than 20 can fit on here. That's what I'm shooting for. It addresses Tompkins County goal of no fossil fuel development, old industry with a new industry, ample acreage for a data center, potential synergies for artificial intelligence, machine learning, Cornell, Ithaca, other locals. I'm going to come back to that bullet. So load following, REV project, load following. We can load follow what we've asked possible tenants. So how many hours is 1% of the year, right? About 90 hours, 87.6 hours. So we said, look, can you give us 100 hours where we call you up and we say, cut your power? They say, no. We say, well, what if we can give you a better electric price? They say, well, we're listening, right? So they want to do this as well. So we think that's going to be a good fit. And the peak, it might be a hair more, the super peak might be a hair more than 100 hours, but if we get out for 100 hours, it certainly helps them with the peak time. Creates more stable revenue for local governments. I mean, that's been all over the property tax, so I don't need to go into that. Okay, so learning centers. How many people know that the Cornell president has at least a master's, it might even be a doctorate in artificial intelligence? Right? I didn't know that. So I started thinking, okay, perfect, right? And we're trying to work with other institutes. How many people know that SUNY Binghamton has a test center on their campus for data centers for energy efficiency and cooling efficiency? I did not, okay? The president of SUNY Binghamton also chairs the Regional Economic Development Council that this project falls into. So John and I are visiting SUNY very soon, so I'm very excited that these guys are actually looking at energy efficiency and cooling for this. So there's the fit university-wise, and that means we're not going to stop trying to work with other universities, but I'm excited that we have a university in our backyard that I didn't even know about. Okay, am I done talking? Are you up? Okay, so what we want to do next, so this is the project, and you still might have questions, but what we really like to do is try to get through another presentation on the permitting side of this, and then we've taken the questions that we've received and kind of lumped them in, and if we haven't already answered them, we're going to kind of ask them directly, answer them, and then at the end, we'll take further questions. But we think we've done a pretty good job of answering the questions that we've received ahead of time. On dry, you're up. Okay. All right. Okay.
Again, my name is John Marabella. I'm the environmental director for this Cayuga facility, the Somerset facility, and also the Tanner Street facility in Massachusetts. As Jerry stated, we've gone way back. We've been through a lot together in trying to get, keep coal generation going to, gas to a milk plant to biodiesel to, fish farms. You name it, we've looked at it. All our options, putting in a wallboard plant at one point. So we've been through it. I think we're finally to a point now where we can get excited about a project, about the data center, that I think is a win-win for the state, the community, and environmental groups. But I think we can, this is something that we can sink our teeth into, and we can make this happen. So I'm going to go a little bit into the data center permitting, the solar permitting, and then go into some of the regulatory on the closure of the coal facility. So one of the, obviously, first thing we're going to do is when we find a location for the data center, decide on that, we're going to issue a site plan application to the town of Lansing. It'll have a project description, it'll go through the project, the approximate acreage that the data center will take up. It'll go through a land use, whether we put it on existing crusher run or we have to put it in our meadow, or where we're going to put that, and the impact it may have on stormwater, any traffic impacts, which may probably be minimal in this case, any potable water usage or cooling water usage. I'll get a little bit more into that. Will it generate any wastewater? You know, like I said, a lot of these can simply be answered. Any historical, archaeological requirements at this location, any determinations, stormwater discharge, any hazard waste generated again. That's a lot of these can be answered quite simply, being the magnitude of this project just being a data center. We'll also have to, again, work with the town and the town engineer, town attorney, Ed, to go through a stormwater pollution prevention plan. So we'll go through, we'll have plans for any sediment and erosion control during construction, such as maybe having to place, silt fences up, some type of temporary, mitigation of stormwater, or reflow of stormwater during construction, and then also be able to comply with the stormwater and control measures, such as maybe installation of any catch basins, or any sediment traps, or any, like I said, any change in the culverts or diversion of any stormwater away from the project site. So it'll be a detailed plan both for construction and for the operation of the data center. We'll also submit an agricultural data statement. Because it is an Ag District 9, we are required to fill out that form as well. And the statement will be that whether we decide will be on previously farmed land or not, or will just be in a meadow, or like I said, on just asphalt or crusher run. A lot will depend on the location of it based on how that form will be filled out. Anticipate the town will be the lead agency with the oversight by the county. The county will probably have do a project review and comment under 239, and we expect the DEC to also review and comment on the stormwater pollution prevention plan as well. Expect the town to make a determination on seeker, work with the town again to go through whether this is it's a type 1 or a type 2 action, depending on whether there's any physical alteration of the site. And then the town to either issue a negative declaration or a positive declaration, which the positive declaration then require a full environmental impact statement. So we'll work through the town on that. The size of this project, it should have a lot of minimal impact as compared to maybe the solar project, which I'll get into in the next slide. We'll also have to deal with the plant currently has a water withdrawal permit to withdraw the water from the lake. We need to quantify that the amount of cooling water, the type of cooling water, whether they need, how much potable water they need, or how much lake water source they would need. We would continue to use the existing, we put in a couple of years ago, 0.75 millimeter wedge wire screens for impingement and entrainment reductions of aquatic species. That will continue to be operated if we do intend to use the cooling water for the data centers. But we do anticipate that obviously the water withdrawal will be significantly reduced based on the current operation of the coal-fired generation plant. We'd also have to make a determination based again on the location of the facility to perform a wetland delineation as well, depending on, again, the location. If we put it on in an area where we already have like a parking lot, crusher run, wetland delineation would have to be done, but if there is we have to put it somewhere in a meadow or somewhere near where we think that maybe there's a potential that it is a wetland, then we would do a full stage wetland delineation on that area. And then upon town approval of the site plan application, we expect to get a building permit to build the data center.
I need some adult supervision here, John.
Okay.
You're doing a much better job of this than
Just hit enter.
I did. It's stuck.
Is it backed up as amazing?
Probably, yes. Okay. As Jerry pointed out, we have been through several NYSERDA applications, NIPA applications, so we have been involved in this for about 2 years. So about 2 years ago, we did approach the town and talk about a site plan application. So we did meet with Ed, Mike Long, Dave Herrick, Guy Crow. We did meet with everybody on that to sort of get their preliminary idea of what they want to see for the site plan application. We filled out actually a long form, EAF in this case, also sort of a draft for any kind of review and comment. So we were further along in this process as far as the site plan application and getting the town's feedback. The long form is going to require obviously a little more extensive detail on the wetland delineation, the land usage, because now we're going to get probably into more forested lands and meadows, so there's a potential for getting, encroaching on wetlands. A geotechnical survey would also need to be done, a topographical survey as well. Air emission impacts would have to be determined. Floodplain determinations, any impervious surfaces as far as where inverters would need to be located, as far as where the solar panels and the inverters would need to be located. As far as the SWIP, the DC would be much more involved with this because of the extensive acreage that we would be getting into. So we would try to minimize the amount of impervious surfaces. So where the inverters are placed, or where any of the utility poles are placed, or placement of the solar panels themselves. We'd also have to fill out again the agricultural data statement being part of the when solar panels will be installed on previous land that was used for farming. The town, again, we anticipate will be the lead agency on this, with oversight again by the county as a review of the project through Part 239, and much more oversight with the DEC on the SWIP, as well as involvement, which I'll get into about placing the solar panels on the landfill itself. The town, again, will make a determination on seeker, whether it's type 1 or type 2 determination. This will be much more involved in working with the town to make that determination based on any physical alteration of the sites, and declare either a neg or a positive, or the need for an environmental impact statement to be completed. As far as so we're further along on this, the wetland delineation was completed by Labella back in 2017. The plan is, we determined that we were going to put solar panels in areas where to avoid any of the wetlands that were delineated. So we're going to place, so some of the areas look a little, aren't really square, because we're avoiding any kind of wetlands that were delineated, or any streams that were determined as well. U.S. Army Corps of Engineers also provided their preliminary jurisdictional determination on this. And they will also review the final location to make it of the solar relays to give their final blessing that yes, we indeed did avoid streams or any wetlands that were delineated from the study. We also did a topographical and geotechnical survey, determined the depth of bedrock for being able to anchor the solar arrays, and soil characteristics for the issues as far as any loading of the solar arrays, and also a contour map, looking at final construction, what we're dealing with as far as slopes, or how much we have to put additional fill in some of these areas. And we also got to get into endangered species as well. We did an endangered species survey as well. And we did determine that the northern long-eared bat would be impacted. So one of the it was that if we do have to do any clearing, it would only be between November 1st and March 31st to not impact the mating, birthing, or nesting season of the northern long-eared bats. We're also waiting to hear back from the State Historic Preservation Organization on the National Historic, if there's any determination of any archaeological locations that we determined for the solar array. That is part of the state, as I mentioned before. We plan on putting a portion of the solar panels on the landfill itself, the closed, capped landfill. So we will be involved with the DEC, will be involved in that as part of the Part 360 solid waste. We will need to provide the final design drawings to the New York State, the DEC, and for a final approval. And we're looking at a ballast solar racking design. I don't know if we have that picture, Jerry.
I'll show it.
Okay, all right. What we're looking at, so as not to actually impact, anchors to impact the integrity of the liner on the landfill. So everything will just be placed right on the surface, so we won't have any alterations of the existing topsoil or have any impact to the liner itself, the final cap liner. We'll also have to meet certain loading requirements as specified with the DEC as well. So once we get their final approval, then we can move forward with installation on the landfill.
See, you asked me to do something and I screwed it up.
Okay, sorry.
Hang on. This.
And the easy part, I just had
I don't know why this doesn't show this. Hang on. Screw with their computer.
How much soil do you have above that liner to anchor in?
What's that?
How much between the liner and the topsoil do you have to anchor those solar panels?
We won't be anchoring, that's what we're going to show you. All the addition can be placed on the landfill, all the electrical, everything will just be placed right on the surface. Nothing will penetrate the topsoil or the land.
I tried to get so you could see this bit. See this right here? This just sits. Nothing is going to
Yes.
penetrate at all.
Yep. You see, that's just like a corrugated, concrete-filled base, is all it is. There it is. Everything will be on the surface. Nothing will penetrate. Unlike where the solar panels are placed, will actually have anchors in the ground. These will not be anchored. These will be just right on the surface. It will physically alter the landfill cap. Again, we'll continue to work. We'll work closely with the town as part of the site application, the county and the DEC, to get the permitting finalized for the solar project. If and when, hopefully, if and when we get the nicer. Talk a little bit about the regulatory site closure. We'll continue after closure. Continue to operate under current permits We'll continue to maintain compliance, closure, post-closure, with all permit conditions to ensure that there's no adverse environmental impacts. So we'll continue to meet all the conditions of all our permits. We'll also have a list, financial and legal obligations for asset retirement obligations as part of the closure of the facility, for renewal and restoration of the closed site. Some of those is the coal pile. All coal will be removed from the lined coal pile. Water will continue to be monitored there as we monitor it now and be treated like it is now through our water permit discharge. So that will continue to be monitored until such a time where we can be in compliance with a water permit without having to treat the water. Bulk storage tanks, all the petroleum, chemical products will be removed from those bulk storage tanks. They will be cleaned, will be mechanically isolated. They will be labeled that they are closed. Pictures will be taken, that will be sent, and they will be deregistered with the DEC. All pumps, motors, equipment in the facility will be drained of all any kind of oils or coolants, like I said, to lessen the environmental impacts. So there's no adverse environmental impacts with the closure of the facility. We also have in place a landfill site financial assurance that's in place. It's an assurance basically to the state, which ensures that the landfill will be capped, the final cap, monitored, and be maintained for 30 years after final closure. This will be enacted if the owner is not financially capable of meeting these requirements. So based on this, there is no current contamination at the site, and we will continue to monitor it out 30 years to ensure that there continues to be no contamination at the site. We have an extensive groundwater monitoring, surface water monitoring network that will continue to be in play for the next 30 years after closure.
Okay, thanks, John. Okay, so asked about regulatory process. So, let me back up. And you heard John say it once. So we went into in-depth on permitting there, but there was a lot of questions on permitting. We anticipate working very closely with the town. We will initiate that process, 2 different projects, when we win one of these solicitations. Solar is really expensive to do, especially in upstate New York. When we win one, we're going to be in here trying to work through this permit. Same will be for the data center. Okay, so Ed has made it extremely clear. I'm going to give you some credit, Ed. I just stood up. That there have been electrical issues in here. And so I'm assuming that the plethora of questions that we received on what's going to happen when you add this large load, what's going to happen when the plant goes away, what's that process, perhaps stems from that, okay? So we don't get to make that decision. So let's talk about the load interconnect. We've applied, I said that earlier, we applied for a 50 megawatt load interconnect. The ISO, working with, I'm going to try to be very careful with my terminology here. The New York State Independent System Operator, who governs the reliability of the grid, will be the determining factor on what happens when you add a load to this area. It's a process they go through. They will work with the CTO, the connecting transmission owner, NYSEG. Both of them will sit and they'll model a load. And the terminology is extremely difficult. But they do scenarios. They'll do a base case scenario. They'll do what they call an N-1 scenario. So that's a contingency scenario. Okay, it works as a base case. Let's eliminate a transformer. Let's eliminate a circuit. Let's take this piece of generation out of the system. Does it still work then? Then they'll go to 2 scenarios, N-1, -1. Then they'll come back to us with the results of the study. And they will let us know what it's going to take to add load to this area. They'll do on a system impact basis, and they'll do it on a voltage basis. So we will know when they talk to us. On the generation side, it's basically the same process. You put a notice in, you say, we want to shut down the plant, they'll go through the study process. Fairly familiar, we did that in 2012. The outcome was, nope, you're needed for reliability. We went through a long reliability stint. Unit 2 is currently in an ICAP, ineligible forced outage. It's mothballed. They did a study on that, it wasn't needed. When we put a notice in for 1, they'll go through that same study. We're not guessing at the determination. The betting money says, since they've already done the major upgrades, there isn't an issue, but we're certainly not stating that at all. We're just going to go through the process. Okay. I'm going to read the questions that we tried to lump into certain buckets here. We have about 3 pages worth, and then we'll have a quick dialogue. One of us will take it, okay? Where we're both standing. So, the PSC, I think I covered this one. The PSC has made a couple of rulings on cryptocurrency server farms. Does this affect? So what happened here? These guys that are doing Bitcoin went to where the electricity is the least expensive. Municipalities, the closest one to us is Groton, but the one that made the headlines was up north in the North Country. They moved in, they started using a lot of energy, they used up the bucket of municipal electricity that was allowed in their contract, and the residents who were part of that municipality had to end up paying more. It was a big surprise. The PSC came in and ruled and said you can't do that. That's not what we're doing here. We're going to take energy off the grid. We have asked for a NYPA allocation. NYPA has a program for that, Western New York expansion and Recharge New York. We put apps in, we're following that program. What impacts will taking all the power from the system have on power supply and the rest of Lansing? Will there be any changes to the transmission system as a result of shutting down the power plant? I don't know why I asked that. I'm kind of this because we just answered it. The ISO will determine that. Okay. Do you plan on any site generation from the old power plant for internal use? If so, will the plant remain connected to the grid? So the answer to that is no, we won't. We are going to attempt to use that interconnection for our load needs and for our solar needs. We're going to try to do both. Now, we're flipping the load model. Right? We're taking 300 megawatts away, and we're adding, first time through, 50 megawatts up to 100. That's a delta. It's a pretty steep delta. We're not guessing on what that outcome is going to be. We're going to see what it's going to be. Am I correct in assuming that you will be replacing the current plant with a new building? Well, we didn't say that as we're presenting, but you kind of inferred it. Yes. These guys who do these data center projects want a building. It's basically a Morton pole barn. Does everybody understand what I mean when I say that? It's just a pole barn. Now, there's been some questions around efficiency of this pole barn. What's the lighting? So I can only kind of guess at the lighting, right? So maybe somebody's worried about kind of, is it going to affect a view shed? There's not really a lot of outdoor lighting for this. It's pretty much enclosed. It's their own incentive. They use a lot of energy. It's their own incentive to be as efficient as possible. And in fact, the NYPA allocations that you fill out ask you, are you going to be lead server? So we're trying to do everything we can to be as efficient as we possibly can with these buildings.
So that means that the big smokestack is going to come down?
No. And I'll go into that. But there's some questions in here on structure. You asked, so I'll answer that now. The current infrastructure we want to keep. Several reasons for that. Reason number one, there are opportunities when you bring a data center into this for larger growth. It attracts other business to be located near that data center. We'd like to use part of the current infrastructure, that office space, advertising it as space. We have talked about trying to use the plant as a training center. There's opportunities there. And back to the CLCPA. So that's the Community Leadership Client Protection Act.
Climate leadership and community.
I keep saying the C's backwards. And I don't mean to be purposely making fun of that. It's
No,
a bit of a mouthful.
it was two different bills that got merged.
Okay, so it's my educated opinion that to meet the lofty goals on the generation side of that act, that technology hasn't been invented yet. And I'd like to put that technology on the site. I think it's a perfect place. So we want to stay open for business for other sources of projects, including it's a perfect place to put generation. That's what it's done for 70 years. So we're going to maintain the structure. John put a slide up there. Pumps, fans, motors, we're draining oil, we're getting everything to be safe people-wise and safe environment-wise. Will you be using any part of the current power plant or its equipment for this project? So I sort of just answered that. It's a perfect segue. The property is in consolidated water district. Will the data center have a significantly different water use? You sort of hit that.
I did that, yeah. It's anticipated that, we can't quantify the water requirements right now, but we know it's going to be significantly reduced. We don't know what the type, potable or the lake water, what the requirements are going to be and what type of water maybe they would require, even specifics of the data center as far as cooling is concerned. So that would be better quantified once we get into the detailed design of the data center itself.
Jerry, you didn't tell us why you was.
Excuse me. If we could be polite and let them go through other questions first, and then we'll systematically go through the questions that people here. I'd like to stay organized and respectful, please. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. We're going to try to kind of work our way down. Who will own the server farm? How will you get internet service to the server farm? Are there opportunities for residents to benefit from running high-speed internet through northern Lansing and be able to buy into the service? So I kind of grouped, that seemed like a nice group, so I grouped them together. So as we've talked about being able to take all this data, computing power, and get enough bandwidth to put it out, we've talked to a couple different service companies. And I'm not going to be good at this, but I'm going to just reiterate what I've read and what we've looked at. We have the ability to go to 5G. We think we have the ability to go to 10G. That's good. So the next thing I've asked about is, okay, we're in an area where there are residents who still do not. Is there anybody in here who doesn't have internet service at their house? The brains of the school doesn't have internet service at their house. So we certainly want to, if there's a way to take advantage, broadening the use of broadband, excuse that term, we want to do it. I can't sit here and promise that now, but I know what's on your minds. It was a thought I had, because we struggled to actually get enough internet bandwidth at the plant. So yeah, we are going to be looking at it. Ed described that you're going to provide a battery backup to the grid at this location. But I don't see that, Jerry's information sheet. Could you give us more information? Okay, so I wanted to highlight this. I think I hit this already, but it's an important concept. So I have gotten in trouble by making the statement that I'm sometimes a little tough to learn, so I'm going to say it again. Energy storage doesn't work. Now, I realize the technology works. I've been trying to do storage for 3 or 4 years. It's tough to make that work in today's market. It certainly works. We put storage in first in New York State under AES at the plant in Binghamton at Westover. Things worked fantastic. And it was a different business. Okay, we did it as a gift. We didn't even cover the cost of the batteries. It's like it was a philanthropic business. So I want to put storage in. I want to make it work. I understand the importance of that. Coupling it with solar, we could have a good debate about that, because when solar is producing, you probably don't want to stuff it in your battery. You probably want to put it on the grid. So we got to figure out how to make that work too. So I was part of the battery storage meetings. I've been active in the ISO on this. The ISO is going to make changes to their regulatory framework. But storage is tough. We got room. I want to do it. I'm going back to the fact that this data center is a battery, sort of, in that it's going to do the same thing. In times of need, we're going to turn it off. That power is going to be available for other sources. So, do people, am I hammered on that too much? Are you bored by that? Do people get that? I think it's important. The ISO called it demand-side management on steroids when we talked to them, so I know they got it. Okay, what energy efficiency measures will the data center use? Lighting, what proportion of energy will be to go to running servers versus cooling the facility? Okay, I added this one because I don't know the answer to that second question. It's very good. I do not know cooling versus computer usage. It's more on the computer usage. I don't know how much more. We're going to attempt to use lake source cooling. A question that we've had is, okay, now you've been heating up the lake, now you're going to be heating up the lake again. This is very, very minimal compared to what we have been doing. I can't give you what that delta T is going to be, but it's going to be extremely minimal. We're going to look at that trade-off versus electricity for cooling. We'll certainly be looking at that. Right now we're targeting lake source. It's one of the reasons why I'm interested in getting the SUNY B, because this is what they're studying at their data center. Where on the property will the solar farm be located? Are you considering putting solar on top of the coal ash landfill? How many megawatt hours do they expect your solar array to produce? Will the power from the solar farm be used on site or sold into the grid, or both? If sold, will it be sold into the wholesale market? So I'll let you talk about where. We don't have a slide.
Yeah, we don't have a slide for it.
So, Ridge Road.
Yep. Yeah, I'll do.
Yeah.
Yeah, where Lake Ridge Road is, and everybody familiar with Stark Road, we're actually put it on, it'll be on the northern side. There'll be several panels on the northern side of Stark Road, right along North Ridge Road. There'll also be several panels, several areas, sites that we had. It used to be attributed as farmland. That's west of the landfill area. So there's actually 3 sites there that we're considering. 2 are metals. 1 is somewhat of a forested area. Jerry brought up the black walnut, so some of that would be forested. In that case, to put that the westernmost solar array, and then we would place solar panels on the landfill. It'd be on the currently capped portion, which is the eastern section of the landfill, and also the northwestern section of the landfill as well. So probably make up about close to 78 acres. Count this.
So megawatt hours. So what capacity factor? Do people understand that term, right? How many hours of the day is your solar farm going to produce, and how many megawatt hours you get out of it? So this number is improving. When I first looked at solar, and I had no idea how solar worked. When I first looked at solar 3 years ago, in New York State, that number was about 16%. So 16% times the installed megawatts is how many megawatt hours you get out of it. now that number is 18.5%. There are developers out there that saying they think they can get 20. So 20 is a pretty high bar for New York State. New York State, I still don't, maybe you have seen Irene, but I still don't find anybody that can tilt them to follow the sun. You can, okay? But what happens up here is they have a hard time surviving winter, and the amount of dollars that you have to put in to maintain that tilting function versus the extra megawatt hours you get out. Developers I'm talking to say it's not worth doing. So we're looking at, are you agreeing with me? That's twice tonight.
Dan, you better put that in your order.
So, these aren't necessarily the producers that you see in Nevada and so forth, but we're going to try to do what we can with these. The energy. So I already stated that we're approaching this as two separate projects. If we get both done, we'd love to have our data center tenants be our solar energy users. If they aren't using it all, or they do turn off, we will also have the ability to put this on the grid. More solar, of course, I've already mentioned it. Are there plans for expanding the data center in the future? Where will the power come from this expansion? So, we've stated this already. We're initially looking at a 50 megawatt interconnection that goes through, we make it work. We're going to file to go to another 50. We think 100 probably taps us out, but I can't stand here now and tell you that. Where will that come? We're going to always be looking to take this off from the grid. That's our source of power for this. Solar on site, maybe this next technology, maybe we'll put a nuclear in there.
We just lost everything.
But that's our plans. Expansion and continue to look at the next technology source. Are you going to continue to use this came up a lot. Rail. So what are we going to do with rail? So we don't own a lot of the rail. So I can't answer that question. Okay, we own where do we own? What's the name of that road?
The Old Milton Road.
Old Milliken's Road.
We own, yeah.
From there
Center
on,
line of that road.
we own. Center line to the north. To the north.
Yep, center line to the north.
And so we're going to maintain our tracks. Why? It's easy to do, and you never know. Now that's not because we're looking to bring coal in or we're looking to bring rail CNG. It's just easy to do. We're going to try to keep our options open for anything on this site. What NS does, I can't answer. I have received many emails. What's Cargill going to do? What's going on? I'm not here to answer any of that. So the answer to that is we're maintaining ours. I don't know about the rest of those sites. Another question that comes up a lot. Are you going to apply for a tax abatement? I do not want to. This is not my decision. It's our owners. They tend to listen to what I want to do on local issues like this. I don't think there's a need to for this. So I know, it sounds like I'm hedging, okay? It's not my intent. I do not want to. I don't think it's necessary for this project. We're looking to get a NYSERDA allocation and some Empire State Development funding to get this kicked off. Taxes. So I have talked to the county assessor, and we're both trying to figure out how you tax a data center. It's unique, but one thing I've learned with this county, and I'll make a little plug here, I'm going off script, having an assessing department done by the county is really good. There's only 2 counties in the state that do that. And that's what they do for a living. They're very good at this. And so we'll come up with something. It's going to be a decent, significant number. I don't know if it's going to be In the old days, what do you know the numbers about?
20 years ago, it was 233 million.
I don't think we're going to get assessed on that.
20 million, and now it's, or excuse me, 160 million, now it's 20 million.
We're working together. We want to get the number right. There's no sense getting this thing done and then starting to fight. So that's what I'm putting out there. Okay, current operations. So we touched on this once before, but there was a lot of folks that talked about this, so I'm going to sort of dip my toe in here again. How many jobs will decommissioning create? Are you going to hire local labor for the construction phase? How many workers from the current operation will be eligible for positions in the proposed data center? I lumped all those in with the questions I got, and I kind of themed that. So again, I want to make sure everybody understands. We're talking about people who have worked at this site, who put their kids through school. There is at least one set of 3-generation employees who worked at this site. Okay? This has been a good living for a lot of people. These guys have worked hard. Decommissioning. John's talked about it. We have an obligation to run our water treatment system, to monitor, to continue to test for a long time. Now, it's not going to take a lot of people. It's going to take some. We believe our guys will be the best to do that. Certainly not going to be the jobs that are there now. That's what we're looking to do. Construction, are you going to do local labor? Well, of course we are. And again, ESD and NIPA both have a section of local labor. What's the verbiage for the fair wage?
Prevailing wage.
Thank you, you said that. Prevailing wage, almost all the union jobs are higher than prevailing wage. I'm not sure I know how to define that, but we are going to use local labor. We've talked to the local shops. They're excited about this. So, that's what we're going to do. New jobs at the data center. It's really a completely different skill set. So we're going to do what we can to try to figure out how to turn a guy who's welded all his life into a guy who's now going to be doing keyboard work. Honestly, I'm not sure our guys desire those jobs, but we're going to try. It's a tough fit there. We have worked with the local labor groups in the past, Tompkins County Workforce. We're going to get them involved. We're going to try to figure this out so everybody has a sub-fleet. I think there will be a few people that just simply say, I'm good, I've had it, and kind of retire. That's going to be a personal decision for every one of these employees. So I appreciate the support. There was a ton of questions around the employees. We're going to try to do what we can.
That's 3.
Okay, site cleanup. So, and I'll work the stack question into this, okay? We have an obligation to continue to monitor. There is no contamination on the site. We want to keep it that way. We're going to continue to follow all our permits. We do daily inspections, we do monthly inspections. The DEC is out annually. They review all our reports. We're going to continue to honor all of that. That's what we plan on doing.
We'll continue to do our closure tasks to make sure that there is no adverse impacts then to air, to surface water, and to groundwater at the site.
Somebody asked about PCBs. There's no PCB contamination on the site. And the stacks. So we have an obligation to cap the stack. That's important. You don't want rainwater just coming in there and then sitting and building up. We do not plan on doing any demolition of the stacks at this time. Solar on the landfill. We're going to talk about this one more time. We're going to put solar on the landfill. We're going to try to qualify for a second NYSERDA grant that looks to try to help companies put solar on landfill. We've talked to the DEC. They have a procedure. They would like to see us put solar.
Yes, very encouraged.
So we're targeting that. When we close, we have an obligation to close that landfill. Part of it's closed now, part of it is open and being used, and then there's a third part that's ready to be used, but it's not closed. The part that we're actively using will stay open long enough while we treat water, because when we treat water, we have a sludge process. We're allowed to put sludge on that site. It's permitted for that. That active piece will start to close. Eventually, the entire site will be closed. Closed means capped.
It'll be capped with an 18-inch non-permeable clay soil, and then over top there'll be a polyethylene liner over top, and then there'll be a protective soil cover on top, and then a 6-inch of topsoil, and then vegetative growth over the top. So the landfill will be completely encapsulated, both on the top and the bottom through groundwater suppression, which keeps the integrity of the landfill such that groundwater that won't impede the landfill. So it's hydraulically isolated. It'll be hydraulically isolated and separated from the landfill, the groundwater. So the groundwater will be, the suppression system will divert the water away from the landfill to assure that the integrity of the landfill stays viable. It'll be this cap now will completely eliminate any contact stormwater with coal combustion products. I mentioned about the groundwater suppression system. That'll continue to be monitored as well throughout this 30-year of monitoring. That'll be monitored as well. There'll continue to be inspections. We have on-site monthly inspections. We also have a third-party annual inspection done by a professional engineer that's done every year, which generates a report. We'll continue to be regulated under Part 360 as well as the new our coal combustion rule, the federal rule, that we're regulated under as well. We'll continue to be regulated under that. We'll continue to be regulated under the DEC. They've been very proactive in oversight and looking at our annual groundwater monitoring reports and going through all our inspections. We also send them an annual Part 360 report that gets into detail on all the inspections. The financial assurance, they approve all the financial assurance changes, any modifications to the landfill has to go through the DEC. That is all going to continue beyond the closure of the facility.
And there was a site that you talked about that would show the DEC sonic contamination.
What's that?
That website.
Oh yes, we have as part of the CCR rule, we do have a public website. It's scoc1.weebly.com, which actually it goes through, we have annual dust control reports, our annual inspection reports are included in there, groundwater reports are in there. It's all publicly accessible website.
We're good.
Okay, so as I mentioned earlier today, we have these sheets that people have signed up. I'm starting with number 14. First of all, I'm going to say a disclaimer that any mispronunciation of names is no sign of disrespect, because that'll happen. The first one I have is Mr. Rieger, is it? Robert? Rieger? Okay. Second one is Randy Smith. And the other thing I'd like to say, please keep your questions concise. I know we're all passionate about this, but please no editorials, no lectures, no arguing, no disrespect, because this is the start of a continuing process of information going forward. So, on that note then, I have Randy Smith.
On that note, I'm good.
Oh my goodness. The next one is it Rob Jetty?
Good.
Okay. The next one is Lori and Jeff Moscow.
I do have a question. I crossed it out very good.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I just wanted to know what the time frame for. Do you have
That's
an
actually
idea
a
of when
great
it's going to
question.
start, when it's going to end?
If the New York Power Authority grants the power,
Right.
Okay, this is all
Yeah, it's the
hypothetical.
whole, like, even with the hypotheticals,
Yeah,
if
so let's-
things go as planned.
Let's do the schedule like I set it up, right? So the line in the sand, let's pick a date. July 1st, we get a phone call that says you're awarded what you asked for, okay? The piece of the scope that we're going to chase from there is the interconnect. That's going to take the longest amount of time. Okay? We think we can get through the interconnect process in 18 to 20 months. We can have the data center up and running quicker than that. Okay? The solar, the data center permitting, we believe, is easier to permit. It's a important pole barn. The solar is a bit more of a permitting process. We think if we got July 1st, that we could be producing energy from our solar field early 21. We shoot for 20, but we think early 20. That's going to take an interconnect process too. The ISO is getting overrun. The New York Independent System Operator that governs the interconnection process is getting overrun with ads, mostly downstate, but as projects are coming on, they got to evaluate all of this. So my answer is 18 months to 20 months for an interconnect. The data center can be built quicker. The solar is allowed in that time frame.
Okay, so these are all going to happen concurrently or consecutively?
Yes.
Okay.
I'd like to have them happen concurrently. We can do that.
You can do that if all the permits fall.
Yeah. It's different pieces of land that we're looking to build this. A data center, I don't think I covered this either. A data center is like, let's say 40 feet by 700 feet. So it's kind of this oblong building. And we think 50 megawatts is probably 1.5 to 2 of those. So we'd be looking to put that on site and then the solar around it. Okay.
Next one is Ann Rhodes.
I have a question about jobs. I appreciate that you expressed concern for your current workers, maybe 28 or 30 of them, and that you would seek to use as many as possible in the remediation, and that you would seek state assistance for retraining. My question is, would you consider, for those who can't take advantage of those things that you're offering, would you consider severance pay or contribution to retirement for the ones who are not able to take advantage?
And so my answer there is we have a current contract, I believe, and those conditions are covered under the contract.
Would you consider going beyond your current contract?
I'm not the person who will be doing that.
I'm encouraging you to consider going beyond it.
Okay, I'll take the feedback.
Thank you.
Is the contract public information? Next one is John Dennis.
Yes, hi, thanks for the very informative presentation.
You're welcome.
And it's an exciting project. I am concerned about legacy contamination at the site. So roughly 2 million tons of coal ash are thought to be contacting groundwater. The groundwater suppression system was designed and built in 1977. One person suggested that the spacing is not adequate. Is it still running at 100% efficiency as to when it was put in? And if not, is there a possibility of actually digging up some of the stuff that is touching the groundwater if that's found to be the case?
What happens there is annually groundwater suppression, and actually we go through and we visually check groundwater suppression, all that piping, and we actually do a flush on an minimal annual basis to ensure that the groundwater suppression system is fully functional. So it is operating at 100% capacity because we are proactive in ensuring that the groundwater suppression system is operating functionally properly.
The reason is that the DEC suggested that the cap is working, less water is getting in.
Yes, exactly.
And it's drying out. Are you seeing a reduction in the actual amount of leachates that's coming into the sediment pond annually? Because I believe you're releasing
have now a much smaller footprint of an active site. That's statement is true, that it's less, obviously less stormwater coming in contact with the coal combustion products, combustion byproducts. And once the site is closed, that active site will be capped with clay, the polyethylene liner, so that no stormwater will come in contact with any coal combustion residuals.
There's no release of leachate to
That's all it goes. Nobody's
pond is tested, and before, during, and after, and we wouldn't release anything into it.
So you're saying the fluid, because your stormwater is also going into that sedimentation pond, are you saying it because you're mixing stormwater with it, it's no longer called leachate?
You can call it leachate, but the stormwater comes around the system and into the pond. That's what it was designed for, but it's stormwater. Okay, it's when we test it, it's stormwater, and that's what's released to the lake.
Yeah, we'll have to sit down and discuss this in detail because there is a flow from underneath the landfill that goes into that pond, and that is definitely not stormwater. And I believe it's in contravention of DEC's principles to be mixing stormwater into that pond. That pond should be dedicated for leachate. And I realize you run it through a sand filter, but the sand filter is, very vulnerable technology. It makes it less turbid, but it's not removing heavy metals. So we're concerned about bioaccumulation in aquatic biota up to the trophic levels for its fish, and it's the drinking water supply of 50,000 people, roughly. So, these are long-term issues that will probably be there 50, 100, 200 years from now. But it's a long-term issue. We hope that financial assurance is what, 10 million, 6 million? What is it right now?
It's enough to cover 30 years.
Yeah, but when we read through the details, it's enough to cover for 30 years of sampling and analysis of the water samples. The last time I looked at it, there was no money for repairs of tears and liners, even general sort of types of maintenance. So anyway, that's a very important step
for maintaining the site as well.
Well,
I mean,
let's sit down and talk about it a bit more. I suspect maybe it's upping a bit. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Next one is Sue Roth.
Yes, hi. I wondered if you are open to having the town form a task force made up of community members and experts to help with the transition.
The transition to a data center.
Repeat the question.
So she's asking, I'll repeat it to make sure I got it. Does that work? She's asking if we would form a task force to help with the transition
Of the town.
of the town, and
It's done in
involves-
it's been done in other places
Yeah.
where you form a task force with people to just make sure we do due diligence as a town.
so I'm not the decision maker on that either, but I'll take back feedback. I have gotten emails asking for that. Is it Holyoke? Am I saying that
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So I'll take that back. We're certainly willing, we've come here tonight, we're certainly willing to sit down and talk about this as we move forward. Thank you.
So Sue makes a good point about the task force, how we capture that energy that people want to make this a successful project. And one of the things is that, I guess, personally, to ask for your guidance, what's the first thing that we can do as a community? Is it something we can do to write letters? Is there anything we can do here that what is the first homework assignment we can do before we move forward? Because if the New York Power Authority does not grant this, this ends before we go to step 3, 4, 5, and 12, whatever. So if you could send me some guidelines, I'll be happy to.
Yeah.
The other thing I would ask Sue, in all fairness, and we've done this to other groups, is they have somebody be the point person of your group, and we can do the email through that point person or persons, so that we can talk back and forth, whether it be Jerry to myself or Jerry to you directly, and CC the town board. That is a good start to all of this moving forward. Next one is Fred and Shirley Stone.
At this point, we're satisfied.
Okay. Which brings up a point that if questions come up in the future, feel free to share them to either the supervisor or the town board members, because I'm optimistic we'll be having lots of conversations in the near future. Dave Wolf? Dave Wolf here?
You have the lead.
Okay. Next one is Margaret McCaslin.
Yes. My question is similar to John Dennis's, and I lived in the area a long time ago before the large landfill that you have now. And so I'm wondering what kind of monitoring and remediation is going to be done around the older ash dumps. And also the 30-year, none of this stuff's going to evaporate in 30 years. So I'm just wondering, are there any options for ongoing monitoring and remediation after 30 years?
So I'll take the first one. We're responsible for the landfill on our site. I'm not even sure.
Can you speak up?
We're responsible for the landfill on our site. I'm not even sure if I know where there's other.
Are you referring to the landfills on Davis Road? And those are owned by NYSEG, NYSEG continues to monitor and maintain those
That
sites.
was part of the acquisition when the plant was sold in '99. So I get the point on 30 years. We've looked at the engineering of this. We're pretty confident that this remains intact as it is now. I can't answer your question for beyond 30 years. I mean, we're governed by the DEC. The DEC holds us to 30 years.
Okay. Paul Sutter?
Oh, I'm fine.
That's the big one.
Ruth?
Yeah. I'll talk to you later.
Ruth and Roger Hopkins?
Thank you. 3 quick questions. Is there any difference between a data hub and a power plant regarding security and fire protection?
That's a great question. So, security, I think we would probably maintain the security we have now. So the place is entirely fenced in. There's only one way in through the gate. Right now that gate is unmanned. If you need a fob to get in and out, I think we'd maintain that same security. Okay? These guys, I mean, a data breach is a big deal, right? So these guys are going to want to make sure that their data is secure. I forgot the second part of the question.
Fire protection.
Fire protection. They have, this is a big deal, right? It's computers, they get hot. They have their own fire protection system. So we haven't engineered that. I probably won't engineer that. That'll probably be something they tell us that they want, but they do have fire protection systems.
Do you have any, your eyes on the Bell Station property next door? Would you support converting that to a state forest? Or would you oppose that? Or agree not to oppose it?
Okay, so the question is the Bell Station next door. So let's define the framework of the question. I wasn't necessarily around when that was built, but I'm kind of told that the foundation is still on our property.
Excavated, yes.
Yes. Roughly 500 acres of
Oh,
wild.
north of us. That's NYSEG
Yeah,
land.
north
I
of us.
can't answer for them.
But you don't see anything in your plans that would make that attractive for you?
Okay, so the off the record, if I was Lord, what would I do? I'd certainly swap their really nice solar places. It probably isn't where we'd be looking to do a park anyways. And say, hey, if you give me that for solar, I'll give you this for a nice park. But I am not the decision maker. Don't take that back to my boss. Okay? But that kind of makes sense to me to do something like that, right? I mean, I don't want to cut trees down and put solar up. They got some nice looking solar place there. That's nice.
And just to find a quick one, would you consider having some kind of public access to the lake?
Yeah, okay, so we had that question.
Okay.
So I have to hedge all of these that I am not the decision.
Yes.
Okay, but we sort of do now because we have the fisherman's access. But to answer your first question, we probably keep the data center fenced in. So So if we can figure out to accommodate both of those, of course we take a look at it.
Sounds like a win-win if we can do something with Bell Station. I find it ironic that Bell Station was going to be a nuclear power plant there. Now we've seen it come full circle talking about nuclear. But for something to go through where you could use that for your solar, let's say hypothetically it goes into your next phase and leave the rest, not as a state forest, we have to go through all this 480 acres, we get there at 20, we have all these other red tape. It would be nice if we had, so here's the property, this is what we want, you can have the woods and the shoreline, have at it. Dean Shea.
So a lot of my questions were answered, but I do have one regarding the fly ash. I see there's various building products made out of fly ash. I use Oral True exterior trim siding products, for instance. Have you found any market, or have you tested those markets? You probably have.
Because John's going to want to jump in here. He's probably already dancing. We have done official use determinations to sell fly ash, and we continue to sell fly ash to the state.
Yeah, we sell DOT, spec ag, concrete additive.
Yeah. So how would that affect capping off the land that we be able to access that?
Well, we sell it as we produce it, yeah. Or we landfill. We have been approached at mining the current site. We haven't really come to a conclusion yet if that's really the right thing to do on that property.
What do you mean by mining?
Reopening the site.
Yeah. Previous landfill ash. Make sure you use.
Thank you. Irene Weiser.
Yeah, Terry, this has been a really interesting presentation, and I do want to reiterate, I think it's a really exciting direction. I do have, based on some of the information I've heard tonight, a little bit of discomfort around the stack is going to remain, that the air emissions permit is going to remain. I get it about the water withdrawal, so you can do cleaning, so I get that. And I wonder if it ties into another question around that is, what happens if you don't get the money bed allocation for hydro energy? What are your plans?
Oh, okay. So
Is it, I mean, I guess.
I'll take that in order,
Yeah.
right? Let's just go to the airport. I get that you're at 10 on my deal.
It's hard to hear you.
So, sorry, I told you that was going to happen. Thanks for whoever said that. The air permit, there's other pieces of equipment under that air permit. For instance, this plant was never designed to need heat. It was always going to run. Our guys are very cold in the winter. We have an aux boiler that provides steam to help keep things warm. That aux boiler is under that air. We're looking to try to figure out how to get around that. But we need to continue to look at that.
Can you use the waste heat from the data center
Perhaps.
to
Right?
heat
The data center is a couple years away. That's why we stayed and we're going to keep looking at it.
And so back to what happens if you don't get the allocation
So,
from nitrogen?
if we do not get our ask, we have to figure out what we're going to do. We're not quite sure yet what that is. We've tried to turn over every rock to get to where we are now. We're going to figure it out. I don't know what we're going to do. Our energy market won't support energy generation. It just won't.
Even with gas.
No. At least not currently. Now, don't take that as Jerry said he's never putting gas there. I've already scolded Ed for that. The energy market won't support gas
At the moment.
at the moment.
Right.
And with
you've
the
got, relative to the other power plants in the state, you've got relatively inefficient ones.
Correct.
So it's likely going to have more carbon emissions and not going to be as cost competitive as some
Well,
other
and
plants.
so the other piece of this is, if there is new gas generation, that's like an if with a great big capital, okay? It's it's going to be generators that will support intermittent energy. Unfortunately, our site wasn't designed for that. It takes us 12 hours to start the unit. The market wants units that start up in 10 minutes. And so, that's just where we're at. So there's a whole lot of reasons why it's going to be very difficult to ever see us repurpose this site as generation. I'm not saying no. I'm not trying to be clever. I'm just simply saying we're looking to flip this to be a load.
Charles Reed?
I'm good.
Joe Wilson?
No more questions.
Okay.
Sounds like all more questions.
Okay, thank you. Joe Wilson?
Yeah, you may have covered this. My note-taking is not the best. But over what period of time do you expect to do your cleaning up that you feel you're required to do?
So, because it sounded like you're a little soft-spoken like myself, his question was, over what period of time is it going to take for us to do our cleanup, our decommissioning? At least 2 years. Now, it's going to take, for instance, on the coal pile, all of that water is captured into a vessel and we treat it. The plan would be the water that's captured in that vessel after the coal is gone and we put soil and grass on there, and it's just raining on soil and grass, but we're still capturing it, our permit says we got to treat it. Well, we're going to go to the DEC and say, look, it's just rainwater, we're just treating normal rainwater, and then we'll have to probably do that consecutively for some time, and then they will say, okay, you can stop treating. So I can't answer how long. You understand why?
Yes.
Okay.
Are there other phases beyond what you just described?
That's probably the longest.
It's probably.
The longest. That's why I went to that one.
Okay, thank you.
Susan Henletter?
No.
Jonathan Comstock?
Yeah, I'm actually just puzzled about the ability to turn the data center off. I don't know very much about them, but the articles I've read in the past talked about one of the things that was really important was their consistency, their stability.
Yep.
If Cornell's in the middle of some massive calculation using your system and you turn it off, so how does that limit your ability to do that?
It's a good question. So let's first just talk about that versus, let's say, Nucor Steel, who really can't do this, right? It's a process. If they're in the middle of their process and they lose energy, everything they got, they have to start from scratch. Okay, so what these data centers can do is, this data center can be forming this calculation, this data center over here in Montana can be mimicking it. So they'll set up for, if this goes down, this just picks right up seamless. Now, how that actually works in real life, you've hit my intelligence at this point. But that's what they talk about, mirroring and backing up. Okay, and that's why they can offer this. Now, demand-side management means you can say no occasionally, but you can't say no every time, right? You're still going to have to meet a minimum requirement of hours that you said you could do this. But that's the best I can answer that question.
Okay. Judy Pierpont?
You say these data centers. I'm suddenly hearing a lot about, Montana, California, there's one starting up in Georgia, 2 here. How much is needed? And are there plans for more of them? Can we expect to see them coming along all over the place? They take an incredible amount of energy. Is there any kind of planning on how much is actually needed?
I think they're all pretty darn good questions. Very unanswerable. Okay?
Yeah.
I'm starting to learn these too, and we're trying to gather intelligence. It seems to be a little bit more prevalent abroad than here. They certainly chase climate because they obviously want to take advantage of a colder climate so they can do less heating. They're located more north. I don't think the need, the computing power need is going to be continued.
There are lots of them all over the place.
I can't,
I may not know.
they're good questions. I'm not sure I can answer.
Sean Black,
She left.
Tom Butler,
Would you like to go out on a limb and guess whether this energy allocation is going to happen?
So what I will say is the energy allocation and the capital we're asking for are formulaic driven. And the formula is based a lot on how many jobs we're creating. We're not nearing that threshold. However, we have tried to say there's two asterisks to that. And we've had help with both jurisdictions, town and counties in both locations. Well, 40 jobs here is duplicate to making something like 300 jobs in New York City. So the jobs numbers you can't quite say are the same. And second of all, this is a unique situation. You're shutting down businesses that have been in economic peace in these communities. Okay, we've come up with an alternative. I know that they're working hard to try to meet our number. I can't go on.
Do you know when this is going to be?
No, I don't know that.
so it's not too late to contact your assemblywoman, not too late to contact your state senator, not too late to, you can give us some contact numbers to write letters.
Yep.
All I
I'll
say
get that
is
to you and then you can post it.
we'll post it on the web. If you want to do it that way, do a template, you can earmark what you want from there. Hopefully we'll have a resolution passed tonight by the town board also. I'll support it. Greg Lawrence?
No.
Michael Quindler?
I have a conceptual question, Jared. Now, logically, every bit of power from Niagara Falls is being used, right? Every bit of power.
No.
Well, I'll finish my question and you can.
Oh, I thought that was it. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
So NYPA says new projects are coming online. It strikes me logically that to put new projects online, somebody else has to be closing that.
Okay.
Can you explain it?
That's a good point. Okay, so now I get that. My answer's still no. And it's an interesting no. So, and you can see this on the site. You can go to the NYPA site and they'll show you Western expansion, their total allocation, and what they've allocated. So there's room on that. They'll show you recharge in New York, what they've allocated, and what is left. And there's room on that. We fit within the room on both. Okay? They're back down a lot. Part of the reason is because there is congestion in zoning. There's massive congestion in the western part of the state. And there's massive congestion getting power from the western part of the state to the city, to the point where NYPA is curtailed. The Somerset project fixed that curtailment, so that's an advantage that that project has a little bit over this. I don't want to get into that. It's a good question.
Okay.
Yep.
Eric Gavitt? Don Hartel? Don Lee? Okay. And we have Julie Kiefer?
My questions have been asked and unable to be answered.
Now, is there anybody that has not signed up here that wants to ask a question? Oh, okay. You first, right there.
Okay. You mentioned lake source cooling, and it takes water from down low, but then puts it back in at a higher level, which that adds phosphorus to the top layer, which might contribute to algae growth, which is a big problem.
So, it's a great question. This is not like Cornell's where we're down low.
40 feet and
40 feet.
the reservoir.
So, and we put in a new system for impingement and treatment. So we meet all 316B regs, federal regs, with the system. It's a good question.
Okay. You haven't answered the question yet. Have you?
So I hate to hit on this again, but I'm probably one of the youngest people in the room. So this 30-year sort of limitation is concerning to me for many reasons. But I'm wondering, it seems like you're shying away from an exact number, telling us how much you have as far as in your ARO that you're required to carry for like a bond or something for remediation over the long term. And I guess my other part of that question is, what if we get to the end of 30 years and still seeming like there's contamination from the coal ash landfill? What is going to happen then?
Okay, so not necessarily shying away, that number floats a little bit.
Yeah, the DC will continue to monitor that site.
I meant the dollar value of the bond, right?
Yes.
Because we disposed part of the site.
Yes, because we come and close part of the site, the financial assurance changes.
It's
You want, I have a number, yeah, it's $7.9 million.
so $8 million, 7.9.
And is that adequate to cover if there is contamination or within the, repair of the liner or
It
something?
says, it's to cover the closure and then to monitor and maintain the site.
In our monitoring right now, we will continue to monitor. Our monitoring right now shows no contamination. Okay, so we're not afraid that something's going to happen later on. As far as the 30-year part, it's what the DEC has told us to do. So, I mean, I guess if you have some concerns with that, you need to register that.
Does anybody else have to ask a question yet? Yes.
So, about the encapsulation of the landfill, do you know, and if so, how do you know that encapsulation can withstand like a really major weather event, like a hurricane that causes massive flooding and down trees and down power lines?
I'm going to try to take this. So down trees and power lines aren't an issue because we have a permit to keep all that away, including vegetation, okay? Massive flooding. I don't know what massive means.
We'll say like the whole site is really completely inundated.
So if that were to happen on this site, and so I'm being very, very hypothetical here. I really don't. If we had enough water to start to move that site, we're in trouble. Not because that site's moving, okay? Because of all the other flooding that's going to occur because of that much water. That site is sound. It's engineered to take that out.
But there are power lines in the area, like if something fell on that material.
There's no power lines. There's no power lines near that site. There's nothing.
Those power lines are far enough away. Yeah, we talk about the transmission lines.
Yeah.
They fall, they will not.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's someone else who has to ask a question. Joe?
Yeah, I'm still trying to understand why you're mothballing a generation system that you have no plans of starting up again.
Why would what?
Mothballing a generation system that you're not planning on using again. Why not scrap or sell it off or move it out of there and utilize that space for something else?
That may happen. I want to see what happens as an outcome of the lack of generation is going to be on supporting the grid. I still think there's a technology out there that is going to come up. It's going to be controversial, what I say, okay? I do not believe we can power New York State with solar. I don't understand how that can happen. I realize others do, I just don't. So something's going to be built to help power New York State. Maybe transmission gets built so that we can finally do something in the western part of the state and feed that. Our turbines require a certain amount of startup time. I don't see them being used again, but we certainly can use parts of that facility, bus work, duct work, the electrical components. So I don't think it's worth scrapping these.
So your question is, rather than scrapping this level, do something, why are you keeping that building up there? I'm going to refer to our planner, CJ, and she's taught me a lot about existing buildings and the greenness they have. You keep telling me this quote, which is
the greenest building is the one that's already built.
Because otherwise you got to find a home for it. It goes away. Where does it go away? It goes in a hole, and then you bury the hole. Where did the second Wegmans grocery store go? away. It's into some hole. Mount William Stones at Wegmans, as we're saying, there's a lot of stuff there. Or the old library, where'd that go? It went away, in some hole. So it's best to keep the building there. Any other questions? I am going to get to you, I promise, right now. Go ahead.
Okay, so just as a point of information, I'm the chair of a county committee that oversees the closed landfill, and we've been closed for 25 years. We actually had a meeting last night. We installed a new bedrock well there last month, so there's no plans to stop monitoring at 30 years. Anyway, even though that's the regulations, the county has said that they continue to have an interest in monitoring it. The question I wanted to say is that the environmental management system on this site was designed in 1977. There are issues with that. You could not build that landfill today. You know, there were very few solid waste regulations in 1977. And so there are issues and we need to resolve them. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you weren't managing the site well, given the nature of the management system, but there are certain improvements that can be made, and I'd love to talk to you about this.
Good. Anyone else have any questions before we have to run next door? Yes?
The coal comes in by rail, is it going to go out by rail? When you remove the coal from the facility?
Plan on trying to burn off as much of the coal. It's, how many days? I probably just give you 10 days. 27 days. And, you know, we've run in the summer typically, and that's what we
Okay, one last one, then we're going to wrap it up. Go ahead.
I'm fascinated by the idea that there might be a commercial value to the CCRs in the landfill. So as coal-fired plants are shutting down, there's less fly ash that's being produced readily. I suspect this is going to become a more and more interesting asset, but I'm a little worried that when you put flue gas desulfurization and other things in with fly ash, maybe the concrete people say, no, can't touch it. Is there a way to screen out the industrial waste and other stuff that doesn't work in concrete? And so if you see, and also if you just see this as maybe 10 years from now, you start mining this site.
So I'm certainly not going to say no to that.
We have spoken with some people where they can separate it out. Yeah, they can. There's separation technology. They can separate it out.
Just got to make it cost effective.
Have you actually had an offer from a company saying, hey, we'd like to test your
So we're going to wrap this up. Thank you all for coming. I'm sure there'll be other questions. Thank you, Jerry. Thank you, John, for coming here. I hope this has been informative, and we hope to have further discussions. Thank you.